a Utah judge just ruled yesterday that Utah's federal congressional districts are unconstitutional. And this is a big story. There's so many facts, so many things going on behind the scenes. And it goes back all the way back to 2018. And what I'm going to try and do is go through the facts and then go through legally why it was struck down. But also, this is a story about how too much power one side in one state can cause problems, essentially. But what happened in 2018, and this was upcoming for the census, so every 10 years the census comes out, and when the census comes out, you can redistrict based off population changes. And so there was a initiative that was passed by the people, a majority vote by the people, saying that, hey, we get to set up this commission, and this commission will be set up by someone appointed by the governor, someone appointed by two people on the majority side, and then two people on the minority side. So essentially two Republicans, two Democrats, and then one person decided by the governor. And what they were supposed to do was supposed to come up with maps to propose to the legislature. And the maps, the law specifically said that it has to be based off county lines. It has to be based off school district lines. You have to consider partisan issues. You have to consider traveling. You don't have to travel everywhere all over the state. So there are specific rules on how to determine the district maps. But also, this commission could only submit it to the legislative branch for their approval. And then from there, the legislative branch could decide to approve it or not. So it wasn't like they had complete power, but this was passed by the people. But then what happened, and this has been happening quite a few in other instances too, where a law is passed by the people, and then the legislature steps in with the majority power and amends it. And so what happened was they amended this law and made it so the committee could be more adversarial, not with the majority minority people, and then also a lot less rules, essentially, as to districting, and pretty much saying, but between the lines, you can gerrymander. So they repealed the law, and they came up with this commission. The commission sent in maps, and the legislature, it seems like they didn't even vote. It seems like they may have voted on one map, but they didn't vote on any of the other maps. And then they came up with a completely different map. And I'm telling you, this map is gerrymandering to a T. So Salt Lake County is right here, and that's like the most liberal part in Utah is Salt Lake County. They cut Salt Lake County into 4 parts, and they put them literally to the 4 winds. So one part of Salt Lake County district went all the way up to the north. Another part of the county district went all the way down to southern Utah. Another part, southeast Utah. Another part went to southwest Utah. Another part went down to more conservative south region. And so they pretty much diluted it, so there's no chance of any party on the other side, Democrats, winning. And when I first saw the map, this came out like in 2021, I believe. I saw it and I was like, there's no way this can fly because of how Salt Lake County was split up. Purely partisan gerrymandering in my mind. So then what happens is they get sued. So they get sued, goes to court, and the district judge originally says, well, I don't think that the law that was passed that changed the original law passed by the people is unconstitutional. And then that was like sent to the Utah Supreme Court to determine whether or not it's unconstitutional. And Utah Supreme Court in 2024 came out and said, yes, we actually think that it is unconstitutional. And so what the legislature did again, they've amended it once. They tried to amend the law again. That happened in July of 2024. They tried to amend the law again and come in with elections, have it passed something different, and essentially what happened was the Utah Supreme Court came out and said, no, you can't have this on the ballot because you didn't give out proper notice. It wasn't put out in the newspapers. And so that attempt by the Utah legislature again to subvert this Utah Supreme Court decision was struck down. So then that sets us up to what happened here, where on summary judgment, finally, the district court judge said that, okay, this is the original law that was passed by the people. This is what was supposed to happen. And so legally, what the Utah judge essentially said was, under federal law, the power is not just in the legislature, because that's what the other side was arguing, was saying, hey, the legislature only has the power to do this. You can't subvert our power. But the district court judge said that, hey, based off this law and based off Utah Constitution, based off federal law, it's the people and the legislature that have the power to do this. And they said that that was subverted with the changing of the law that was passed by the people, and said that it was unconstitutional. So if they would have just followed the original law that was passed by the people and followed those rules, we wouldn't have got caught up in this mess. But they tried to subvert the voice of the people and change that and say, hey, no, we're going to do it our way. We're going to do it our partisan way. And I mean, it was interesting that that passed, because that kind of made, two Democrats come to the table and say that, hey, and come up with maps. But again, the legislature didn't have to approve of those maps. And if it was appointed by the governor, you'd have 3 Republicans, you have two Democrats, and all the maps that would get sent to the legislature would be Republican approved anyway. So if they would have just originally followed the law, we wouldn't have got into this problem. But now they're required to go back and redistrict in 30 days. I mean, they could take it to the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court has already, Utah Supreme Court that is, has already essentially ruled on this, and I don't think the Utah Supreme Court is going to change their ruling. But also, they could technically take it to the U.S. Supreme Court after the Utah Supreme Court's decision, but there wasn't a whole lot of federal law that was determined. They were really just going through the nuances of state law and how they violated state law, not federal law. So I don't even know if it's something that the U.S. Supreme Court would take up. Some people are saying that this could get dragged out till 2008. I don't know if I can see that or not. I mean, I guess it could go to the Utah Court of Appeals at this point, and that could take 7 to 8 months if they do appeal it. And then if it goes to the Utah Supreme Court, that could take another 7 to 8 months. And then at that point, we could be past voting, which is in 2026. But they would have to ask for an injunction, and the Utah Supreme Court, the Court of Appeals, would have to approve of an injunction to stay this order from the judge at that point. So we'd have to see if that could be stayed. But if it does, then that kind of nullifies everything that's happened legally, which stinks, because I mean, they've ruled it now at this point unconstitutional. And we're already 5 years into this decade. And so if they can drag it out another 5 years, then it kind of nullifies the whole thing, and they essentially win, because they got 4 Republicans in all the districts now that they came up with. So it stinks that, I mean, that's how the legal system a lot of times can't get to something and resolve something quickly. And the damage is already done, even though it's unconstitutional. So either way, in the end, the Republicans have won.